Welcome to the Haunted Basement Studio. Triple B's is here, and you are not going to want to miss this video, especially the end of this story. It has so many plot turns and twists in it. It is absolutely crazy. We are talking Slasher Ripper episode 3, and let's get into it right now. The chief is getting a shot of cocaine from the doctor mortician Israel. She explains that the drug is a miracle drug and it comes from the South American islands. I need to stay focused with these murders on the loose. I need to stay alert. There's a knock on the door. Come in. It's the detective, and he says, "There's been another murder." What, the widow? It looks that way. The chief grabs his jacket and a couple vials of liquid cocaine from the doctor. The chief now detects there's something off with the detective. "I warned you the widow would strike again." "And you did get it right once. Maybe if you arrest as many psychopaths as me." "Psychopaths? Just like Andrew May, sir?" "Because it looks like you arrested the wrong man." "What the fuck are you saying?" "Andrew May, sir, was convicted in a court of law. I had enough evidence on him, on that bastard. Way more than your left-handing writing poem bullshit." They make their way to the paper, and hanging outside the window is a piece of skin. And on that skin is an embroidery, and it says, "Five more who did their part, five who stopped a woman's heart. Their justice is a blatant lie. If they don't confess, the five will die." Opening cut credits. Boom! "Listen, Chief, the widow is communicating directly with us, and the common denominator amongst all these messages is Margaret Maher. So, what lies did Edith tell about her murder?" "Only Edith knows." "Sir, if this is what the widow will do to someone who merely printed about the case, imagine what she will do to the man who solved it." "Nah, it was just, I was just doing my job." "Sir, the message speaks about justice, and you are justice in the city. We have to accept the fact that your life is in danger." Do whatever it takes. Your fancy profiling stuff. I don't care. Just find me some targets." Meanwhile, Verdi is getting treated by the doctor after her bitch sisters whipped her for having a man in the house, which wasn't even her fault. And they say to the doctor, "I can't believe that she did this to herself. Self-flagellation, all because she was caught alone with a man in her house." A frenzy of religious guilt. We could barely stop her. We'll know more about Verdi and these fucking Botticelli bitch ass sisters later. The detective now goes to Regina's house to see if he can find any more clues in Allerston Simcoe's study. Meanwhile, the chief is with Basil Garvey and they're having a discussion. Basil says, "We are going to find out who is responsible for this." "With what?" "Well, with these notes that she's leaving." It points the way. "All those notes is showing that she is getting one step closer to us." "I think you've done way too much of that cocaine Israel is giving you." "I started looking over my own shoulder in my own home. I wonder what evil she has in store for me. Will she rip my teeth out and feed them to me while fucking me up my ass with my own severed member?" Get a fucking hold of yourself. How? Knowing that she's out there taunting us? The widow is not some magic succubus who suddenly appears through the ether. She or he is just a bitter little fuck who knows what happened that night. And since the only people who do know what happened are those of us who were there, we need to figure out Who is doing this? Okay. Yo, Eddie, Eddie, come. And they call for Eddie, and he's not there. Basil catches up with Eddie, and he says, it looks like you're stepping out on me. You even packed a bag. Well, it looks like one of two things. You're the fucking widow. I've been with you the whole time. Most of the times when those people were killed. Except when you weren't, you had plenty of time to get up to no good. Mr. Garvey, it wasn't me. Well, that just leaves the latter option. You're a coward and doing a runner. And Eddie, the second one really pisses me off. She's gonna kill everybody who's at that party that night. We can move around. I'm not running from my city, from the empire that I built. I'm not dying here just because I was there that night. I didn't do nothing wrong. You don't get to duck out on me, motherfucker. You don't do anything without checking on me first. I fucked up. I fucked up. Goddamn right you fucked up. It won't happen again. You forget I own every little piece of you. And I will do whatever I want. And he fucking grabs the knife. And he starts fucking cutting off his fucking ear. And he fucking throws it away. 12 years ago, a woman, Margaret, walks into a church. She is asking for help again. She says that she has been assaulted, not by a man, but two vipers. I come here for help because I cannot stay in that house. The preacher says it's a miracle that the Botticelli sisters brought you in with your history. It was my history why they wanted me. I am completely at their mercy. I'd rather be back on the streets working for Horatio. You cannot mean that. I do. It's an easier life as wrong as it is. Please help me. You take Basil Garvey's money for the same secret I know, and yet I receive nothing but pain. Basil Garvey is the illegitimate son of a crankered whore. You let your tongue run loose like that and he'll cut it out. Well, all he has to do is pay, and I will take his secret to my grave. Listen, I beg you, do not do this. He is a dangerous man. Let me help you get out of town. And do what? With no money? How can I start fresh? I have nothing. Basil Gravy will show you an early grave rather than pay a penny for you. And now at the graveyard, Terrence is at the grave of Horatio with the preacher, and he says she was innocent, but Horatio, Edith, and Alistair, sinners, all of them. Horatio sold that girl. Alistair paid for her. What about Edith? Her forked tongue was of the serpent. She spread lies, and now no longer she can. You sound glad that she is murdered. Her lies helped hang my father, and now the widow is here delivering God's holy vengeance. I say let the streets run with blood. The detective finds a picture that was taken a week before Margaret's death, and the picture has all the people that have been killed and the rest of the people that are in it. And maybe they are the widow's targets. Eddie now goes to Israel to get his ear worked on, and while she is fixing him up, he is asking her, hey, are you the fucking widow? And she says, no, Eddie, I heal people. I do not fucking kill. But please give my best to Basil. The chief now is taking some more cocaine, and the detective walks in on him, and he's like, "Hey, look, I got this picture. Do you remember this picture? Do you remember this party?" And the chief looks at it, and he's like, "I don't, I don't go to parties no more." He's like, "No, that's not what I'm talking about. Look at this picture that has you and George Rondone in it. He was performing that night, but I checked the records. He has never been back until now. And all these killings have started over this time period. And now he is returned." Exactly. And that's why we need to bring him in for questioning. No, we need to put his head on a fucking spike and put it on the city walls. The magician is telling his assistants, "You are essential to my plans here. I cannot do it without you." Eddie shows up and they start to have a conversation. "So, what do I owe this displeasure?" "You and the fancy way you talk. I'm assuming you heard the news about our friend Edith Jenkins." "Oh, I'm happy to see her back. I never did like that woman." "Enough to kill her? Alistair, Horatio, and Edith, we're all dropping like flies. Who's gonna be next?" "Who indeed? Care to guess?" "You tell me it ain't for nothing that these murders started happening once your Ponzi ass came back into town." "Oh, my dear man, I'm in the business of illusion. But murder? Oh, murder is a little too real for someone of my refined constitution." "You're the best Basil's money could buy." "You may be an ox on the outside, but you're a tamed little rabbit on the inside, and you're too scared to stand up for anyone, including yourself." And so the illusion gets him, and Eddie falls down, and he's knocked out. And when he wakes up, he's tied up behind his back. The detective shows up, and before he unties him, he asks him some questions. He says, "Basil and you think that George here is the widow, and that's which tells me that you think you both are targets. Why do we have pictures of you all from 12 years ago? It was taken a week before Margaret's death. There's Alistair's death, Horatio's death, and Edith's, and now you tied up. What happened that night, and why were you there?" "Well, you weren't invited, and you don't want to fuck with Basil's business." All of a sudden, the widow shows up, and Eddie takes off, leaving the detective one on one with the widow. They fight. I don't believe the widow wants to kill the detective. The widow easily takes him down, but the widow then runs outside. The chase is fucking cool, but she disappears when she runs around the corner. And then all of a sudden, she appears behind him and she pulls out a knife and fucking she taunts him with it. She corners him and he has to go up some stairs. And he goes up some stairs and he walks to a balcony and she's up there with him. And he tries to open the door, but he can't get through. And so he turns around and the widow has a knife, but she puts it away. And then they fucking fight, and the widow easily fucking takes him down and throws him over the balcony, where he lands on a roof and it lands on the concrete, and he's spitting out some blood. She walks down to where he is lying with blood coming out of his mouth. The widow stands over him and she pulls out the knife and she looks at him, but then she puts the knife away and she turns around and takes off, like she was taunting him, saying, "Leave me alone in this investigation, or else you will be next." Eddie now is back with Basil. What the fuck? You let her get away? The widow has ripped 3 men apart. You didn't see Detective What's His Face run away? He told me to get out, so you picked up your skirt and ran? After some fucking musician got the best of you? Jesus Christ, what the fuck have you gotten soft? The detective has a photograph of us, all of us, that night at the party. And I've been putting my life on the line for what? Some tough talking little bitch whose day in the sun has long passed. You better watch your mouth. Eddie grabs Basil by the throat. I hope that she saves you for last. The city is gonna see who the real coward is. And Eddie takes off and gets into a carriage to leave town. The detective slowly now comes to and he's walking around in the dark London city streets where he fell off of the roof. And he sees a sign that says Mysterio, and it's a small tent. And he walks inside and he sees candles lit with skulls and a snake in a jar and a picture of Margaret. This is a shrine. And now Eddie's carriage comes to a stop and he hears the horses getting hit. The widow shows up and Eddie starts to run. But she has a whip and she uses it and it fucking stops him and he falls on the ground. She hog ties him. And then she grabs a huge sledgehammer and she's dragging it towards him and he's trying to crawl away. She smashes one of his ankles and he yells. And then she smashes another one of his ankles. And then back after the detective in the shrine, he's looking around and he turns around and he sees the widow, but it's not. It's just a veil and the cloak of the widow. And he's looking at this and he's like, George, what the devil? What are you into? And now Eddie is crawling away. And he's saying, I'll do anything. 12 years ago. Margaret now goes to Basil and she's asking him for money. And he says, go shake your ass. You still got your pretty little looks. You have a fortune, and you're gonna give some of it to me. You think I'm joking? Are the press and your important friends, they will know the truth about your life. Who cares where I came from? Because you were the pickpocketing street Ulrich, the bastard son of a whore who spent her days mugging and her nights fucking. The kind of people you socialize with now. And we came from the same background, so we need to stick together. Basil looks at her with a sinister look, but she doesn't realize it. And he says, yes, you are right, and we should stick together. And I admit I was wrong. I am ashamed. Let me take care of you. Let's go to the Queen's chamber right now so that we can prepare to get you out of the city. And she says, the Queen's chamber? He says, don't worry. It is the last place that the Botticelli sisters will want to see you. Margaret is surprised how gorgeous this place is, but they lead her to a dominatrix room and they shut the door. Later that night, Margaret is with Eddie and he grabs her arm and she's saying, let me go, let me go, please, I'll do anything. They're gonna kill me, please let me go. I do not deserve this. He says, well, why'd you have to go and threaten him then? It was a mistake. Please, please let me go. I will disappear and you will never see me again. And he says, okay, come with me. Eddie from Basil says, it appears that our guest has lost her way. Can you please make her back to her room? Mr. Alistair Sincone is waiting for her. No, please, I cannot go back in there. And Eddie looks and doesn't want to take her in. Eddie, now be a good host. And he throws her in the room and shuts the door. And now Eddie is crawling on the ground and yelling, please, please help me. I'll do anything. And the widow looks at him, dragging the hammer, and she swings it down and hits him right on his back. And he's coughing up blood, and he can hardly breathe. And the widow walks around in front of him with the wind blowing and the cloak blowing in the wind, looks at him and grabs the hammer and swings it over her head and brings it right down on top of his head, and it smashes. Slasher cut credit scene, episode 3. Man, that shit was a wild ride, and this was a long one, and this is going to be on the podcast, but thank you so much for joining me. And this was, I mean, a lot. Where did they go with the ending? They said that maybe it was going to be the musician and his assistant. It kind of points that way, but maybe that's a red herring. But again, we are along for the ride, because tomorrow night this will happen. We'll see episode 4, and I will be doing a review on that. So please stab that sub button on the way out of here. And yeah, I will definitely give this one, still holding 9 out of 10, and I love it. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Later. Triple Beats is out in Haunted Basement Studios. Ha ha!